Hey everyone, it's me again, and welcome to Faith's Face Feels? If you're new to my channel, welcome to my little corner of the internet. My name's Faith Grenade, and I put makeup videos here on YouTube. And you should subscribe, and hit that bell icon while you're at it. It'll notify you every time I upload, so you don't miss another bit of this exciting, riveting action. Today, I'm gonna have a little bit of a skincare Sunday with you guys. I do not want to do my makeup today because I have a wedding to do makeup for this weekend, and I'm gonna need all of the clean brushes I can get. I just washed my brushes, so they're all drying, and they're going to be used on clients, so I don't want to touch them for now. So instead, we're going to talk about skincare. More specifically, we are going to talk about one of the most important elements of skincare, in my humble opinion, which is sunscreen. Some of you may not be aware, but I am an aspiring esthetician. I am in esthetician school, which estheticians are basically skincare experts. So I am far from an expert for now. I am still a student, but I have learned a good bit about sun damage and sunscreen and why it's important, and I figured I'd share some of that information with you guys. Pecky, we're going to be talking about sunscreen today. Is that exciting? So as a disclaimer, I do not script my videos, so we are all the way live up in here. I might forget some information. If you have any questions at all about what I'm talking about, go ahead and leave them in the comments below, and I will try to get back to you. Also, I am the new mom to a very hyperactive, very excited, curious little kitten named Pecky. You might see and or hear him throughout the video. Just, you know, apologies in advance for that. In my opinion, and in the opinion of pretty much any esthetician you'll talk to, sunscreen is the most important step in a skincare routine. And in fact, sunscreen is the only ingredient that is truly anti-aging. Most, skincare products that call themselves anti-aging are really reactive. They're used in response to aging. Sunscreen is one of the only things that is proven to prevent premature aging. What we're protecting ourselves from is the sun. The sun is the skin's #1 top enemy because the sun causes premature aging and skin cancer and all sorts of problems. And it does that through, mainly 2 different kinds of rays. Technically, the sun produces 3 different kinds of rays. We're only going to talk about 2 of them: UVA rays and UVB rays. UVB is the burning ray. It's the ray that we can feel when we're exposed to it too much because you get a sunburn. Hurts, itches, peels, all that crazy shit. The real one you gotta worry about is UVA rays. UVA rays are the dangerous one. They're the aging ray. So UVB is burning, UVA is aging. UVA rays are, America's most wanted of, sun-related radiation. UVA rays are what causes different types of skin cancer, they're what cause premature aging, and they're what cause all kinds of different problems in your life because UVA rays are undetectable. You can't feel when you're being exposed to UVA rays. They are everywhere. That's the worst part. Obviously, UVA rays are emitted by the sun, but UVA radiation is also emitted from the screens of laptops, cell phones, and pretty much anything with a screen. The worst part, UVA radiation exposure is cumulative over time. So, you can't cancel out once you've been exposed. So if I'm in front of the computer for 10 minutes, the radiation exposure that I get from being in front of a computer stays with me for the rest of my life. It never goes away, and it builds up over time. So, think about how many times you look at your phone a day. You're being exposed to UVA radiation. Think about, you look at your phone and you go outside. You're being exposed to double the UVA radiation, and it accumulates in your skin over time. And worst of all, the UVA rays penetrate the dermis, which is the second layer of your skin. The epidermis is kind of the surface layer. It's about the thickness of a piece of paper. The dermis is the layer underneath that. That's sort of the juicy layer. That's where a lot of your capillaries are. That's, you got sweat glands, you got nerve endings, you got all kinds of gadgets and gadgets under there. And what you also have in the dermis layer is collagen and elastin, which are 2 proteins that you've probably heard of before. Collagen gives skin its bounce. So when I touch the skin on my face, you see that bounciness? That's collagen. When I pull or stretch my skin and it snaps back into place, that's elastin. As we age, we lose collagen and elastin from the dermis layer of our skin, which starts to change our skin from a structural standpoint, which starts to create drooping, sagging, wrinkles, lines, all that crazy stuff. You can understand, UVA rays penetrate into the dermis and they destroy collagen and elastin, causing, you guessed it, premature signs of aging. Aging is an inevitability. It's something that happens to all of us, but you can slow the aging process down by wearing sunscreen every day, year-round. Yes, even on the cloudy days. Sunscreen's job is through various methods to protect our skin from exposure to UVA and UVB rays as a result of sunlight or any other lifestyle factors. There are two main types of sunscreen: chemical and physical. I'm going to talk about both of them and the benefits and drawbacks to both. There's no such thing as a perfect sunscreen. Both of them have drawbacks, but I think you'll find there's a clear winner in this case. How do you know a chemical sunscreen from a physical sunscreen? Look at the ingredient deck. Specifically, look at the active ingredients on the back of a product. Usually it'll either be on the box or on the product itself. In terms of sunscreen, from my experience, it has to be on the bottle as well. So, look at the back of the bottle and look at the section that says active ingredients. Should be right near the top. And it lists everything that is active, everything that performs a job as part of being in the product. If you look at that list and you see 5 items on it, chances are good you're dealing with a chemical sunscreen, or a hybrid of a chemical and a physical. If you only see 2, chances are good that's a physical sunscreen, 100%. Chemical sunscreens have ingredients like octinoxate, homosalate, avobenzone, and a host of other ingredients that are very difficult to pronounce. How chemical sunscreen works is it generates a chemical reaction on the surface of the skin. When exposed to UVA or UVB rays, a chemical sunscreen absorbs that radiation, preventing it from penetrating into your skin. And then a chemical reaction takes place, generating heat. So it turns those UVA and UVB rays into heat, which expels out of the skin. Chemical sunscreens have a lot of benefits. The chemical sunscreen ingredients are very flexible. They can be formulated into a ton of different mediums. If you see, sunscreens that come in sprays or powders or, gels, creams, any other kind of texture, usually they're chemical. That's why chemical sunscreens are so common on the market today, because these ingredients are very flexible. They can be bent and shaped into different mediums. Chemical sunscreens are pretty easy to use. They absorb into the skin very quickly. They don't leave any, white cast or anything behind. They're completely translucent. And that can be a huge benefit for someone who's looking for something that's no muss, no fuss. Chemical sunscreens have some pretty major problems. For one that has really only been recently discovered is during that chemical reaction that takes place on the surface of your skin, on top of heat being generated, free radicals are also created. Now, what are free radicals? Are they like some 70s hippie? No. Free radicals are things that occur in the air, usually as a result of pollution, that can do damage to your skin and your insides. So really, free radicals sort of defeat the whole purpose of using a sunscreen in the first place, because free radicals, you guessed it, can also cause premature aging. All you really have to worry about in terms of that is you need to, if you're going to use a chemical sunscreen, you need to look for one that also has antioxidants in the formula. Antioxidants, their job is to fight free radical damage, so they basically cancel out any damage that the free radicals would do as a result of the chemical reaction by using chemical sunscreen. It's just, it's not really that much of a drawback, but it's just something to be concerned about in terms of selecting your sunscreen. If you are buying your chemical sunscreen from a grocery store or from CVS, chances are good it does not have antioxidants in the formula, and you'll still be getting free radical damage. Another downside of chemical sunscreen is because heat is generated in the chemical reaction as a byproduct, it can be shitty for sensitive skin. If you have sensitive or sensitized skin like I do, which most people do realistically, because a lot of people don't use the right kind of skincare for their skin type, and they end up with redness and sensitivity or sensitization. That's a completely different video. I could make a whole video about sensitive and sensitized skin types, but the fact remains, for sensitive or sensitized skin, heat is an enemy. Heat is an irritant. So you know, for people like me, chemical sunscreen isn't the best choice because it generates heat, and heat can create redness and irritation. It takes a chemical sunscreen a long time to take effect. You can't just slap your chemical sunscreen on and walk out the door. You have to apply chemical sunscreen 20 minutes prior to sun exposure, because that's how long it takes the chemicals to sort of do what they're supposed to do on your skin. And this is the case with most sunscreens. The SPF diminishes over time. So while you might have started the day with an SPF 30, in about 2 hours you'll have closer to an SPF 15, and then in 4 hours you got nothing. Chemical sunscreens, more so than physical sunscreens, have to be reapplied throughout the day, usually every 2 to 4 hours, depending on the level of exposure. And finally, another new thing that has come to light about chemical sunscreens is when you swim with a chemical sunscreen on, those chemicals get into the ocean and contribute to the destruction of coral reefs. Now, that's not necessarily a drawback to humans per se, but if you care about the environment, it's something to take into account. So holy crap, it sounds like these chemical sunscreens are absolutely awful. They're not. They do have their benefits, but for a lot of people, and for myself included, I usually recommend a physical sunscreen. Physical sunscreens have 2 ingredients that do the job: zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. Physical sunscreens are way better for sensitive skin because zinc oxide, which is one of the, chemicals, or one of the materials that protects your skin from sun damage, is also a healing agent. Zinc oxide is anti-inflammatory. It helps the healing process, so it's great for sensitive skin because it reduces inflammation. Physical sunscreen can be a little bit less muss and fuss. You basically put it on and go a lot of the time. Physical sunscreen works by literally acting as a physical barrier that stands between the UVA and UVB rays and the surface of your skin. UVA and UVB rays bounce off of a physical sunscreen. They're not absorbed into the sunscreen. They bounce off and are reflected outward. They're fairly easy to use. You don't have to reapply them as often necessarily. And the SPF maintains itself on your skin for a longer period of time. However, there's a few major drawbacks for physical sunscreen. The most common one that I see people complain about is the white cast. Both titanium dioxide and zinc oxide are white minerals. They're like little rocks that get ground up really, really fine and then put into a sunscreen formula with binders and moisturizing ingredients and all sorts of other stuff. But those being white minerals, they can leave a white cast on your skin. I see this complaint a lot among deeper skin types or deeper skin tones because it can create an ashy appearance if you're using, the incorrect physical sunscreen for you, or it can make you look a little bit shiny. You can see I've got some reflectiveness going on in my skin right now. That's because I'm wearing a physical sunscreen. This drawback is pretty easy to mitigate. A lot of sunscreen companies will create tinted sunscreens, and the tint offsets the white cast caused by titanium dioxide. You can also wear makeup over top of it. That can help too. And you can find a sunscreen where the minerals in it are ground up very, very fine. The finer the minerals are ground up, the less white cast you're going to see, because as those minerals get ground finer and finer and finer, the, white pigmentation you see isn't as prevalent. The other kind of drawback of physical sunscreen is, depending on which one you get, it can be a pain in the ass to apply. If you're buying a physical sunscreen from Walmart or from CVS or from your standard drugstore, usually the minerals in the sunscreen are not ground up as fine. That means a white cast, and that means a thick texture. In order for the titanium dioxide and zinc oxide to have sun-blocking capabilities, there has to be a certain amount of them in the product, which can create a really thick consistency. It's like putting wallpaper paste on your skin, and it can be really hard to blend into the skin properly. The drawback with that is if you don't blend physical sunscreens over your skin properly, you can have little gaps in protection throughout your skin, and that can actually, leave you open to UV exposure. How do we mitigate this problem? Well, you find the right sunscreen, to be totally honest. There are sunscreens out there that are easily absorbed into the skin, but usually you're paying extra money for them because, as I said before, the minerals are being ground up into a finer consistency, which costs money, and the other ingredients, the inactive ingredients that are added to the sunscreen, also facilitate absorption and blendability. So those ingredients are usually more expensive, higher quality. You up the price tag a little bit. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples. This is the CeraVe Facial Moisturizing Lotion. This is an example of a moisturizer with SPF in it. This is SPF 30, this is broad spectrum. The good news is you don't really have to worry about whether a sunscreen's broad spectrum or not, because now there are regulations in the US that say that all sunscreens have to be broad spectrum. That means they protect from both UVA and UVB rays. This CeraVe Moisturizing Lotion is decent. I mean, it's formulated for normal to dry skin, so it's a little bit on the kind of greasy looking side for someone. If you have like oilier skin, you might not be such a fan of this, but I do like the fact that it is easy to blend onto the skin and it doubles as a moisturizer, so that's 2 steps of your skincare routine all wrapped up into one. I can't use this because it has chemical sunscreens in it and I have sensitized skin. So this does cause a little bit of irritation for me. So until my moisture barrier is repaired and my skin gets stronger, I can't use something like this. But I used to use it with fair frequency and it does prevent sunburn. I do recommend this to people from time to time, just people who have less sensitive skin than I do. Oh, another benefit of this is that it's at a drugstore price tag. You can find it at Target for about 15 bucks. So pretty cheap. The sunscreen I use currently is a physical sunscreen, and this is from SkinCeuticals. This is their Sheer Physical UV Defense Sunscreen Broad Spectrum SPF 50. Now, SPF 50 sounds like a high SPF, and you're like, oh, the higher the better, let me get an SPF 70. Here's the thing. There are 3 main numbers you want to look for. SPF 15 is okay if you're just going out to run errands or go to the post office or check the mail. SPF 50 will be fine. Or SPF 15 will be fine. SPF 30 is the magic number. You want something that's a minimum SPF 30. And then SPF 50 is a little higher. It's more for, prolonged sun exposure. Now, because I'm constantly at a computer or at my phone or driving, which, again, your car does not protect you from UV rays. If anything, it magnifies the UV rays that you're being exposed to. Because I drive a lot, because I'm exposed to UV rays a lot, I usually opt for SPF 50 just to be on the safe side. Keeping in mind, though, the higher the SPF, the more chemicals your skin's being exposed to, but I'll get to that in a minute. This stuff is magic because I used to have all the same qualms with physical sunscreens that everyone else does. I was like, oh man, these physical sunscreens are impossible to blend into the skin. They're a pain in the ass. I hate them, blah, blah, blah. And then I found this stuff. This stuff is water thin. You can hear a little ball inside it when you shake it. That's because this stuff is super, super thin. I'll put some on the back of my hand here so you guys can see. It's spilling all over the place. It can get a little messy. That's my one critique of it. But this stuff is super, super thin. Now, you know how much of a pain in the ass a physical sunscreen is to blend in. It takes forever. It feels like wallpaper paste. This stuff, I'll go ahead and blend it into my hand right now. Just a couple of swipes and it's gone. It blends so easily into the skin. It's water thin, it's lightweight, it's got a sort of matte finish, so it's great for putting makeup on top of because it doesn't affect the finish of any foundations I put on top of it. It doesn't affect the wear time or the coverage level or anything like that. It's just fantastic. Now, at the same time, a 1.7 ounce bottle of this is $36. That's pretty expensive, but you're getting what you pay for in this case. This is a sunscreen that is easy enough for me to use that I actually am totally fine with using it every single day. SkinCeuticals also has a tinted variety of this same sunscreen. It's still a physical sunscreen, it's just tinted. I use the non-tinted one because the tinted one is a little bit too dark for me. I talked about the fact that you should be wearing SPF at least 30 every day, year-round. That includes in the winter, that includes in cloudy weather. Because remember, even in cloud cover, 80% of UVA and UVB rays still penetrate. Not to mention, you're still getting UVA exposure from your computer, from your phone, from all kinds of different things in the environment. So The safest bet is to wear SPF of at least 30 every single day. It takes an average of 7 to 10 days to turn something into a habit. So just make a note of it. Leave a sticky note on your bathroom mirror that just says, SPF, motherfucker, use it! Talked about the different kinds of sunscreen. We've talked about why SPF is important. We've talked about the kind of damage that can be created from UVA and UVB rays. Now, I'm going to talk about some common skincare misconceptions that I get. I'm going to talk about some of the most common excuses I get from people for not wearing SPF. One of the more common excuses I hear for not wearing SPF is, I have SPF in my foundation / powder / whatever. That works, right? Well, no. I mean, if you're like going to check the mail or something, that's one thing, but a lot of the time, the SPF level in foundations just isn't enough to provide adequate sun protection for an extended period of time. Not to mention the fact that usually you're not putting on enough foundation to make it effective as a sunblock. Now, how much sunblock should you really be putting on your face? Well, what I say is for your face, hold up your index and middle fingers and coat the surface of each of them. That's how much you need for your entire face. Just for your face. Not your neck, not your décolleté, just the face. That's a lot. That's a lot of SPF, and that would be a lot of foundation. Way too much. It would end up looking cakey and, you know, kind of settle into your lines and all that crazy shit that nobody likes. Chemicals! Sunscreen has chemicals in it. It's gonna give me cancer. I love this excuse because it's one of the easiest ones to refute on the planet. Sunscreen has chemicals. Yeah, that's true. It absolutely does. Even physical sunscreens have chemicals in them. You know what else has chemicals in it? The air you're breathing right now, the water you drink, the food you eat. Everything has chemicals. Everything is made up of chemicals. You know, some cosmetic ingredients can be carcinogenic, which means cause cancer. But I just sort of look at the risk versus the reward for each one. So we're holding up the ingredients in sunscreen versus the sun itself. Let's say the ingredients in sunscreen have about a 1% chance of causing cancer, maybe even less than that if you get the right sunscreen for you. The sun, on the other hand, has more like a 70 to 80% chance of causing cancer. 70 to 80, less than 1. If you don't want lung cancer, don't smoke, because smoking increases the risk of lung cancer. Now, there are people who don't smoke a day in their life and get lung cancer anyway, but not smoking is a very easy way to reduce your risk of getting lung cancer. Wearing sunscreen is a very easy way to reduce your risk of skin cancer dramatically. I'm black. I don't need it. A lot of people who think, oh, I'm black. Black people have more melanin in their skin. That means I'm automatically protected from sun exposure. Well, there's some truth to this, but not very much. So, yes, a deeper skin tone will have more natural protection from the sun. Basically, how it works is there are little cells that exist in your skin called melanin, or melanocytes. Melanin cells are responsible for giving skin its color. Here's the thing though, every single human being has the exact same number of melanocytes in their skin. Fun fact. Morgan Freeman has the exact same number of melanocytes that I do. The only difference is Morgan Freeman's melanocytes are larger in size than mine, giving his skin a darker color. My melanocytes are on the smaller side, so my skin gets a lighter color. And it's true that larger melanocytes will work to protect your skin from sun exposure slightly better. So Morgan Freeman is a lot less likely to get a sunburn than I am. No matter how big your melanocytes are, you are still prone to UV exposure. Absolutely. Especially now that our ozone layer, which is normally the layer of the atmosphere that protects us from the UV exposure from the sun, is thinning more and more by the year. And the more thin that ozone layer becomes, the more UVA and UVB rays we're exposed to. And in fact, right now we're being exposed to more UVA rays than ever, and It's just too much radiation for our skin alone to protect us from it. The point being, it doesn't matter what your skin tone is. Sunscreen, every day, SPF 30 minimum, year round. So, there you have it, guys. We talked about sunscreen, what it is, why it's important, the kind of damage it protects us against, and we sort of dispelled some of the myths surrounding sunscreen. I can't force you to wear sunscreen, but I'm hoping that this information sort of guides you in the right direction. That's about it for me, guys. I hope you guys found this video helpful, informative, or entertaining. If you did, there's a button for that. Spank that like button in the butt. You know it deserves it. And if you want to see more from me, got a couple options now. You can click the videos on either side of my head to binge if you're bored or bummed out, or hey, you can hit that button that looks like my face and subscribe and become a member of the faithful today. I put out new videos every Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching and joining me today. Put on your damn sunscreen, and I'll see you in the next video. Toodles!